Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Propulsion Swimming Podcast. I'm your host Scott and back with me as always is my trusty co-host Dan, and on this week's show we are talking BUCS, a little bit like we did last week, but I was actually at the competition for all 3 days, watched every single final, caught some amazing content, caught up with a lot of swimmers and watched some very, very competitive racing.
Yeah, I mean, it was another BUCS meet that doesn't disappoint. It never disappoints from my point of view. Packed stands, a new lighting system on Ponds Forge, which was quite
I think it's been there
interesting.
for a few months now, but
Yeah, that was new to me. And of course, some very competitive swimming, like you were saying, some of the best races in the country on show. Lots to go through, but let's start off with how you found it, Scott. You were there, you were poolside for the 3 days. How was it?
I love BUCS. Like everything about BUCS, whether it is the fact that you've got Olympians in the water, or you know what, I stuck around on Sunday to watch the whole of the middle session. You know, you said about the Sunday morning sleepers. It was that juxtaposition of people actually asleep in the stands, catching up after a night out on a Saturday, to then their relay teams taking place in the water where they get up and cheer for that.
Yeah.
To me, BUCS is the best open meet in the country. I think that's what it is. Realistically, it's an open meet with a team element, which means a lot to those at the top end, but the environment and the atmosphere that it creates for everyone else, a little bit because of that team atmosphere, but I think they need to lean into it a little bit more. We'll get to that. But the middle session is like no other open meet. The support, the team environment that this meet creates pushes the experience of being a uni swimmer and a swimmer at past age group level, I think, to a point that it makes you want to stay in the sport. Like if I was a uni swimmer, I'd want to carry on swimming so that I can race at this fun meet.
Well, that's just it. We talk about these elite swimmers, your Freya Colbert, your Dan Wiffens, but actually it's the uni swimmer as a whole. You're not the elitist guys, but actually they make up the biggest chunk of these teams. And that's where the atmosphere comes from, because they are there to enjoy it. So, I mean, these elite swimmers are there to get points for the university, maybe for their funding or scholarship, whatever it is. But those guys that are going for the uni experience, they want to just cheer for their team. They just want to go there and have a good time. And I think that's what you're trying to allude to there.
Yeah. There's so, like, obviously we did the preview and we talked about why it's so good in terms of competitive level swimming and the amount of names that are on show that are always at BUCS, because, you know, the university scene in Britain is good. There are very good swimmers at university level studying and swimming. But yeah, I think other meets, like maybe even at a British champs level, can really look at what BUCS does in terms of the atmosphere and keeping the crowds around in terms of swimmers watching. Like, not trying to fill the crowd for spectators buying tickets, because that's a different ball game. That isn't what BUCS is. But they keep the crowds a lot around for a long time, and it's loud, and I think it's because of the deep finals that they offer for relays. So
they had C finals, if I got that right.
Exactly, you've got C finals, and it isn't your Dan Wiffen level of swimmer in the C final. No offense to the people who are racing in C finals, but it gives you an opportunity to race in the same session as these top swimmers, and maybe that's what's missing from a few of the top meets around the country. Relays. I think it's a simple answer.
You would want relays at a British Champs, for example, where you're sort of, let's say, a standard swimmer of you are, to be part of British Championships. So you've gone to the British Championships as a part of a relay team, and you can then say to everyone, well, I swam at British Champs. Is that what you're kind of...
Yeah, you don't have to dilute it too far and just open it up to the complete masses. But if you set a limit on, like, one relay per club or school or university, as an example, and you don't have to have your Matt Richards, your Duncan Scotts swim in that relay if they don't want to. There's no need. They've got bigger targets in mind. But what it does mean is you've got this team. You've got a team racing, and the whole club who are attending that meet. Maybe that's the other difference, that actually the whole club can attend and race in the middle session at BUCS, whereas at British Champs, you're not going to have a whole club.
Well, that's it.
Maybe that's the little difference.
End, isn't it? Yeah,
you're right.
Yeah.
But you've got a whole club, and you've got people. If you've got 4 swimmers in one race, that's 4 more sets of parents wanting to cheer someone on.
Yes, true.
That'll stick around longer. And you stick it at the end of the session, everyone's going to watch the whole of the session and stick around to watch that relays.
Yeah.
I've seen it at Scottish Winters. They do it really well. I haven't actually seen it in English Winters recently because the last time I was at English Winters was like 2 years ago. We'll go in there hopefully this time, and hopefully we'll see it then. But the fact that it's A, B, C, and maybe that's the missing element, that the rest of the squad have competed in a middle session. Maybe it's just the amount of swimmers and the amount of atmosphere that it retains through the whole of the day, which makes it a like, you don't want to miss BUCS.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if it would work for something like Champs, because that is the top end. But then your other open meets, let's say Cardiff Open or Swansea Open, or
your
Open,
level,
whatever.
your level ones, which are quite or level, not even your level ones, like your level twos, which are really tame and really long.
Yeah.
For a whole weekend, you add a bit of fun in a relay, and suddenly it wakes everyone up.
Well, unfortunately, open meets are, I don't want to say it, but they are quite dull, and they're quite long, aren't they? Yeah. So if you can add relays, and I'm all for relays at the end, especially if you've got C finals involved. So you've got, like, say, if you've got a 10-lane pool, that's 30 different teams, of which parents, if they're there as well, that's a double amount again. It keeps the atmosphere there, plus they stay for the entire session, which is kind of what you want, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when you go to open meets, once their swimmer's done their race, they kind of go
home.
Yeah, of course you do. Because it's hot on pool side, like, they've done their bit, they've hit their time or whatever the target was, and then I'm not really too interested in anything else, let's just go. Whereas if they've got, even if it's just a 4x50, just to do a little bit of a sprint at the end.
There's no 100.
Yeah, whether it's long course level 1 or even 2 or 3, just a quick 50 at the end, just to get the team environment and the spirit going. And I think pool sides would gradually change open meet wise in this country if they did that.
Well, what if they did what we're saying BUCS needs to lean into a little bit more with teams' point scoring? Like, obviously BUCS is big on the point scoring, and it's always Loughborough that comes out on top. But if it was more transparent, which I've got a problem with BUCS, and that it's not transparent in the points. I was at poolside the whole time. The first time I found out what the score was when they handed out the trophy.
Yeah, that needs to change. That's a problem.
But what if open meets had that built in as well? Like, I know open meets do top club and top visiting club and stuff like that. But lean into it like Arena League does. Lean into it like Team County or County Teams does, and actually bring up the scores as you're going along. And you build a level, like, you build layers to an open meet that it can be tame. Like, it can be long, it can be tame. But if you're building in, like, oh, look at this points, you've got this many, it adds another dynamic in.
Well, it's another thing where swimming is very time orientated. We can't get away from that. But actually, if you take that away, especially for these relays, times are irrelevant. When you've got relay takeovers, they count for nothing in terms of times and your records and rankings, stuff like that. So if you bang in some relays, it's all about getting your hand on the wall first, which is then, like you say, another dynamic again. On
top of that, I would say, looking at the times from BUCS, it's been a while since I've watched short course racing and really taken in what the times were, other than the world records that were hit at the World Cup Series. It was about the racing for me. I didn't look at the scoreboard and go, oh my God, look at that time. I looked at the pool and went, oh my God, look at that race.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about the top races, and a lot of them are actually quite close, weren't they? But we'll get to that later.
Maybe we're getting a little too preachy here, but if you add a team element where it's all about, I'll be honest, for a lot of these swimmers, trying to beat Loughborough, if it's all about that in the finals and you add that into an open meet where swimmers stop worrying about their times, which is a fixation in the sport. I think if you just look at the structure of how BUCS is, it's not perfect, but if you look at it, you take it away to other meets, it could fix some issues at age group swimming. Yeah,
I suppose the other downside is that it then lengthens an already quite lengthy session by another 20 minutes, let's say, if you've got three finals, 3 C finals or so.
What if you add finals to an open meet is what you're saying?
Relays at the end. Yeah. It's going to take one open meet to then try it out, and then if it works and it succeeds, then I'm sure other open meets will try and do the same. But it will take that one open meet to give it a go, I guess.
Who knows? If you've got any ideas, if you have taken anything away from what we've just rambled through, drop us a message. If we can help in any way, try and structure a new different kind of meet that comes off the back of BUCS, then you never know. We might be able to. Okay, Dan, that's enough kind of 15 minutes of talking about why we love BUCS, why other meets could follow BUCS, what could even improve at BUCS. Let's talk about the swims in the water, because there were some standout swimmers, as there always is. And I'm going to talk Freya Colbert to kick things off.
Yeah, she was good, wasn't she? Yeah.
She was so good that she was head and shoulders ahead of the whole field whenever she raced. And it looked like a very comfortable weekend for her. She broke BUCS records in the 2-3, the 2am. I'm not sure in the 4am. I think she just missed it. And the 4-3. And those, or a few of these, were her BUCS records from Olympic year. So, progress is on the up still after the Olympics. It's not slowed down for Freya.
Yeah, and if you take a look at these times, if you compare those times to her long course times, actually they're very similar. The only one that's different is the 400 free, because obviously the longer the distance, the comparison time or the conversion time is a lot bigger, obviously. But yeah, the 200 free, 154 that's good going this time of year of the season. 2IM, 208. Again, these are pretty much her long course times. And then a 4-3 smashes that BUCS record by like 3 seconds. I don't believe it was hers to begin with, but to smash it by over 3 seconds is pretty good going. And she was...
I think that was her record from last year.
Was it actually?
Yeah.
If it was, then that's incredible. I'm not obviously switched on to the whole BUCS records in my mind, but yeah, to be 3 seconds is pretty good. She was just head and shoulders above everyone in every single event she raced in.
Little shame she's not going to World Short Course off the back of this.
Yes, we will talk about this in another episode of the selection.
We will.
Yeah,
but she's going to English Winters, so she's got another chance to race Short Course, and we'll see what she can do with these times, progressing on to there with a bit more training, a little bit of rest maybe, because they weren't rested for BUCS. A lot of these swimmers won't be. But long course is always the aim later on this year, and the fact that she's in a faster place time-wise than she was heading into the Olympics, if you compare year on year, it's very positive. Very positive.
Yeah.
Other standout swimmer then, Ollie Morgan. Always is at BUCS. He races something quite special when he puts on a University of Birmingham hat and the crowd are there.
I just don't remember him ever sort of having a bad race. Like
his two-back was...
That's only because he raced moments before.
He did do the 100 free.
100 free, that's right, yeah. And that race was good. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, his 100 free, he beat the likes of Calvin Fry, Alex Cahoon. He came second.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I think he's knocked almost half a second off his PB in the space of like a couple of weeks.
It's massive, isn't it? It's amazing.
He is one going to World Short Course, so you never know. Throw in a freestyle? Maybe not.
I don't know. I'm not even
sure.
The
backstroke is always the target.
I can't remember the team off the top of my head, but I'm not even sure like relays are even happening for us at the moment. But we'll get to that. Yeah.
100 back, he sets a new personal best short course to a 50.97. Two back, like I said, we don't need to talk too much about that. He got comfortably beaten by Cam Brooker, who was super impressive with a 152.98. In a race where Bath had 4 of the top 5 backstrokers in that event, only Ollie got in amongst them as he got a silver, but Cam ran away with that one. And all weekend, they were the loudest team on poolside, quite comfortably, although I'd say Leeds were quite impressive.
They're always loud. Always.
Yeah. The University of Birmingham, Ollie Morgan, if this is the last time that he races short course for them, he did well. Very good weekend.
It could possibly be, actually, as well. Obviously, next BUCS is long course, isn't it? So, yeah, it could be the last short course he races for Birmingham.
One swimmer who has confirmed that it is their last short course weekend for BUCS is Dan Wiffen. He won the Triple Crown again. He won the 1500, the 800, the 400. No BUCS records this time, but he was in a very special place last time he raced BUCS Short Course Championships. He went on to break a world record later that year, short course. Mm-hmm. He was given a race in the 4 by Tyler Melbourne-Smith, who is quietly having a very good... He had a very good end to last year, like we said in the preview podcast. A very good start to this year, one to look out for later on. Dan wasn't going to let him beat him. It was one of the better races on show for the distance swimming, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, if going back to Dan Wiffen, his pacing-wise was pretty much where you expect it to be. So the 1500s was your low 29s, and the 800 was slightly quicker, and your high 28s, low 29s. Throughout the entire race, obviously, he builds up as the race goes on. But yeah, the 400 was the bigger talking point, I think, because the other races, these by himself, effectively. But then Tyler gave him a real run for his money in the 400. And actually, like you say, he is one to watch out for, not just for the 400, but the 200 as well, Tyler. To the point where I don't know if he actually could rattle the cage for the 4x2 when Worlds comes round in the summer.
Yeah, we're maybe getting slightly ahead of ourselves, but there's always relay spots available. They're probably going to take 6 on that relay.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, to be part of the 6. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a chance that he gets in amongst the final, definitely.
Yeah.
And when it comes to British champs, and what happens from there happens from there. But he's looking really smart this time of year.
It's positive, but like Freya Colbert, everything he's doing is kind of positive and going in the right direction. Trajectory is looking good. So
he won the 2-3. And if you haven't seen the video, I'd recommend going to have a look on our Instagram. Because he won the 2-3 short course with 0 underwaters, just swinging the last 50 meters, which is actually quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, short course is all about the underwaters usually.
It's because he's coming down from distance.
He is, yeah. But then even Dan Wiffen's doing 1, maybe 2 dolphin kicks off each wall.
Tyler's up and gone.
It's, yeah. Well, it's all about rhythm, I guess, for Tyler. So he wants to get in and out of the turn as quick as possible and then get back into that rhythm as quick as he can. So that's probably the reason why. Well, it's just an area to improve, I guess, if that's an area that's been targeted over the next coming years.
Okay, so top para swimmer, I guess, from the weekend was Dylan Broom. There were some very good para swimmers on show. I think we were limited by how much racing we saw the top swimmers racing in terms of Faye Rogers and Tony Shaw because they went on to the Aquatics GB Awards. Who puts the awards show on the weekend of BUCS? Don't ask me. I've got a problem with it, but it is what it is. It robbed us of the likes of Ang Harrod Evans and Kiana McInnes and Katie Shanahan really for a whole weekend, but it is what it is. We'll see them long course, I'm sure. Races, best races of the weekend, Dan.
Yeah.
You watched some of it. You watched some of it on the stream.
I did,
especially the first day. So, which one stood out for you?
I quite enjoyed the women's 100 fly, actually. So you spoke about Kiana just then, and Kiana versus Lucy Grieve. Yeah, that was a really good tussle, actually. They were literally going stroke for stroke throughout the entire race, and pretty much finished at the same time. 600 separated them, both going 57s. That was quite an interesting race. It kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I didn't know who was going to win as soon as they dived in. So that was one of my races. And then the men's 400 IM. That was quite a good one, and you watched that one as well. Yeah, that was a good one.
Charlie Hutchinson got the better of Max Litchfield for the first time in a while, and he enjoyed it. He celebrated it. I know he splashed one of the cameramen. Beating Max on, I mean, I would say they're probably both in the same place because they both trained together. They're both in the same lane with Dave Hemmings. So for him to get the better of Max, they both had probably the busiest weekends out of any swimmer there.
Oh, they raced everything, didn't they? From your 400
everything.
IM to your 100 back to honestly everything, I think. They must have been knackered.
But yeah, it was a fascinating finish. It was it was a duel from off the gun, essentially. For a 400 IM, everyone in the place was going nuts. It was a really, really good race. And while we're talking kind of the box office races, I think I'd throw the men's 100 IM in there. So the BUCS record got broken in the heats by Matt Ward. Then Cam Brooker, get this, was in the middle session, which is a little bit weird to see like the top end elite swimmers in there with your Sunday zombies, if they have gone out for the 2 nights before, which I'm pretty sure that's the whole point of BUCS. Right?
That's the idea.
If you're doing that middle session, that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because I guess he's never swam 100 buck timed because he was like a 107 entry time. He did something stupid like I think he was only 0.2 beneath or 0.2 slower than Matt Ward's morning heats BUCS record, and then in the final there were 4 swimmers, I believe, that went underneath the BUCS record again to be topped by Lewis Fraser.
That's a proper splash and dash in a short course pool, the IMs. It's all about if you nail the turns, then you're good.
We've always talked, and we talked about it during the World Cup series, didn't we, of how good 100 IM is. And I'll be honest, I was on the pool there, sat on the floor, and I didn't see much swimming. I just saw them pop up for about 5 meters, and I was like, where's the swimmer? Where's the swimmer?
Yeah. And it was a close race as well. What was it, 500-600 separating like the top 3 or 4?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't have called it. I zoomed in to try and get the shot at the end. I was like, who's got it?
Yeah, there were more close races. The men's 100 free was also, it was just a blanket finish. The top 7 were separated by 0.2 or something like that.
Yeah, Jordan Cooley gets the win there, which was, I want to say an upset, but it's not. He swam really well at the Masters meet. He set some ridiculous times.
I think he's one to watch, yeah. That was another good race. And then another one for me was the women's 100 back as well, where I know Casey Shanahan won that by over a second. She was clear, but the fight for second and third, in fact, all the way down to 6th, actually, that was separated by like 2/10 as well. Like Neve Ward, you had Holly McGill racing there, Holly Osrin, Lauren Cox, Caitlin Ebbage, like all of those girls, all under 60 seconds as well. That was actually quite a good and high quality race, if I'm honest. That was, I should definitely mention that. That was a really good race, and the underwater's on show there as well. The skills that some of those girls have is impressive.
Okay then, Dan. That's kind of a little bit of our swimmers or races that we really enjoyed over BUCS, like the top end. We've talked about just the overall environment as well, about why it's so good for those who aren't at the top end. Swimmers to watch for this season then. Quietly, who have we got penciled in looking forward? No, we're not putting pressure on people at this point. We're just saying, look, these guys had a really good meet. It's a really good time of year to be swimming well, because actually you're in heavy training. Like it's you're racing in season. So Jordan Cooley, we mentioned him in the 100 free and the 50 free was equally impressive. For Leeds Beckett, we know Leeds have produced some really good swimmers recently. Their head coach is now off to Loughborough in January. We'll see what happens there. Holly McGill won the 2 backstroke ahead of Honey Osrin in what was a really close race. So she was close to the Olympic team in the 2 backstroke. She went sub 2:10 at long course. She sets a BUCS record in 2:05.3, so she's still progressing.
She really is. Like, I'm quite excited to see how she does actually this season when Champs comes round, because she was beating Stella Fields, your Freya Colbert, your Honey Osrin, who went to the Olympics for the 200 backstroke.
Really strong last 25, which got it.
Yeah. We should definitely try and get her on. On a side note there. Yeah, no, she's one to watch out for, definitely. Tyler Melbourne-Smith, you've spoken about already. He is definitely one to watch as well. And then Anna Morgan, I think, she swam quite strong breaststrokes this weekend as well. Scotland seem to do really well producing breaststrokers, don't they? So I think there's another one. She was beating another good couple of swimmers in Lily Booker, Sienna Robinson, Leah Schlossen. She was getting the better of those girls. And I think there's another Scottish breaststroker to keep an eye on top of Cara and top of Ang Harrod and everyone else that they've
English,
got.
But she races
in
Scotland,
she races in. Yeah, I kind of class that because she's up there racing in Stirling, isn't she?
Commonwealth Games, we'll take her.
In a few years' time.
Yeah. Sorry, we're English, if that wasn't clear. And then I guess rounding off, Greg Butler. We've spoke about a few of the backstroke boys, and the backstroke girls scene is really good as well. It always is in this country. It's getting even more competitive. But yeah, Greg Butler in the 200 breaststroke, he was almost a BUCS record. And looking strong again. And I'm sure he's gone through quite a lot of transition recently with Mel no longer coaching at Loughborough. I don't actually know what his situation is. But good to see that he's still swimming strong this time of year.
Well, we've all said that we believe that his better event is the 200 more so than the sprint events of the 50 and the 100. And that 2:06.2 is actually a pretty solid time. So if he can then convert that to long course, then maybe he's got a shout of going to World Champs this summer. Then, yeah, he's definitely one to watch out for as well.
Okay, so that just about rounds up our BUCS review. Like we said, we're leaning heavily into kind of university scene in this country because we do honestly believe there's so many good things going on. Not just at your Loughboroughs where you've got the high performance centres or your Baths. I think Leeds Beckett had a really good weekend. Swansea are always doing well as well.
Swansea did do well, yeah.
So we're going to try our best to shine the light on essentially what's going on a little bit more at university scene, trying to keep swimmers in the sport from the age group onto the senior stage, because that is a tough transition period. Trying to show that while we're talking about like top end performances here, this is as fun as racing gets. Like this meet, stick around in swimming, get to this point in swimming because it's fun. It's really, really enjoyable.
Especially when you've got loads of relays at the end of the day.
There you go.
That's good, isn't it?
While we're talking, what we're doing for university swimming, this weekend we have a video dropping. We've got a new series coming out on the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel called Propulsion Poolside, where we're getting to essentially a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit more behind the scenes of what's going on in training sessions, what's happening at centres. So our first one dropping is going to be Loughborough 50s. We're going to see what went on there behind the scenes, and then the week after that we're going to be dropping a video of Ollie Morgan's training leading into BUCS at University of Birmingham. And like, he's got a really interesting setup for someone who has at the Olympics, for someone who is
Olympic finalist.
He's training in a lane full of like 10 swimmers in a 25-meter pool, which is actually really unique. And how they go about the training sessions to make sure like he's still getting the most out of his training is honestly something that we wanted to shine a little bit more light on. And while I say those two are coming out, we've got more in the works as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite excited to watch that Ollie Morgan one, because the session that he did was brutal.
It was so hard they had to change how they finished it because it was too hard.
Yeah, and some of the footage that we got is quite good, actually. Of if you want to see an Olympic swimmer in pain, you're going to click on that video.
A little bit sadistic.
He was not. It was not comfortable. Let's leave it like that then.
Okay, so next week on the Propulsion Swimming Podcast, while we're talking what's coming up, we are going to be dropping, hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes well, our big interview with Adam Peaty, Ed Baxter, and what's going on behind the scenes at AP. We talk Saudi, we talk finances, we talk future. No questions were off limit. We put it out to our audience on social media, like to give questions. So they personally didn't come from me and Dan, because some of them were quite intrusive. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, you're absolutely right with that. Yeah.
But Adam and Ed opened up. They were honest, and it's a really good conversation, about an hour long. That next week you're not going to want to miss. So make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so that you're one of the first to hear that. If you want to hear it ahead of time on YouTube, we've got a membership option. I'll quietly say that. You can watch it ahead of everyone else if you want to. But until then, me and Dan will see you guys in 7 days' time.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next one.
You've been listening to the Propulsion Swimming Podcast with Scott and Dan. We want to thank you for joining us and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as checking out the Propulsion Swimming YouTube channel for weekly tutorials and videos to get your swimming fix. We will be back next week. Until then, we'll catch you on the next one.